In honor of Earth Month, which is April, we're going to draw and paint a monarch butterfly. The monarch butterfly, as you can see here, is actually an endangered species due to loss of habitat and pesticides, and also loss of the milkweed, which is what they lay their eggs on and the caterpillars eat. So caterpillars can only, the monarch caterpillars can only eat the milkweed. This is an example of a milkweed. So if you want to help the butterflies, plant some milkweed. Okay, so what we're going to do today is I'm going to first show you how to draw out the butterfly. You do not need to draw the plants. That's optional unless you want to do that. So first thing we're going to do is I'm going to grab my other paper and just really quickly show you how to draw it out. Okay, this is obviously a simplified version. Your paper should be vertical, but I'm making it horizontal when I draw the wings because I want to show you how to kind of create the butterfly's wings. Okay, so if you're going to add plants, you might want to do them on the side, depending on which way you want to do your butterfly. You know, if you want to do plants, it'd be right about here, right? I'm not going to draw that out because that's going to take too long, but that would be the area where you'd want to keep the plants. And then you have the butterfly body, and it's really just kind of like a long tube. And this is kind of stylized, a long tube, but it comes to a point, right? I'm going to press harder so you can see it. Remember, you want to press lightly because once you start to watercolor, you don't really want to see your pencil lines. And then the antenna, they're stylized, okay? You can do a big eye if you want. It's up to you. And then the body of the monarch is actually spotted with, it's black with white spots, but you could just paint it black. I kind of did both on mine, which I'll show you again in a minute. Now, when you do the wings, you're going to want to turn your paper like this. It really helps because basically you're kind of making a two lines going at a diagonal outward away from the body of the butterfly. Okay, so definitely turn your paper for this. Okay, and then, you know, you can draw a light line saying, okay, that's about the middle where the wings are separated. It's a little curved. I'm going to keep it light. And then I curve down and then inward a little and then out. Okay. And then here, now I can make that darker, curve that kind of like that. And then here I have the bottom part of the wing. It curves down, curves inward a little, and then outward to meet that bottom line. So you might have to erase that a little because it's not really a corner, right? So I'm going to kind of soften that, round it off a little. And I'm feeling like I need to widen this out a little so it looks more curved. Yeah, that looks better. Okay, so the hard part is kind of getting these partitions. It's kind of like stained glass, and every time I draw this, I feel like I draw it differently. And every time I look at a different drawing of a monarch, it's always different, okay? And clearly, I'm not the scientist here. I'm just the artist, so this is not perfect, and certainly not 100% anatomically correct. If you really want to do it correctly, you can always look at an image online, but I'm just going to simplify it. Okay, so basically, it's got these partitions that are kind of, I guess you could call them ovals, but they kind of come to a point towards the body, all right? And then sometimes they don't. Talk about, you know, nature being extremely unusual, okay? So you can kind of stylize it if you want and make them all come to a point. They're almost like teardrops, right? It doesn't have to be perfect and anatomically correct. And here it's kind of the same thing. And I just kind of follow the curves of the wings. And create little partitions because there's a lot of black in between the colored areas. So you see that right there, right? And then I just make more of them. They're smaller. They're like U's, right? And then I kind of follow the lines that I already created with these shapes. And kind of break it down, like I said, into my stained glass, all right? Okay, so there's a lot of black here and then little speckles, like little odd shapes. So I do need to add a little more on this side. So I'm just gonna kind of draw a couple more like U's now, right? And then I'm gonna go back and just kind of follow that shape that I did here for these shapes, all right? And you can add a little more here and there, and it doesn't have to be like a perfect shape, all right? It's kind of organic, okay? And then at the edge, so on this one, I was just having fun and I did hearts, you know. It's basically just speckles, as you can see here. So you can just go in there and make some random shapes, all right? Or even circles. I've seen drawings where they're just like circles like this, right? You know, whatever is easier for you, do whatever you want. If you want to add the hearts like I did, go for it. Circles work too, right? So you can decide, do you want to do shapes more like that, or do you want to just do circles? Obviously, stick to this or that. Don't do both like I did. I'm just showing you different ways you could do it. Okay, so you want to fill this whole area up. I'm just going to do this real quick. Blah, 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 blah. Okay, there we go. All right, so, and if you want to add the speckles to the body of the butterfly like I did, you can, or you can just leave it black. So, once you've got your butterfly drawn out, you're going to want to take a Sharpie, obviously drawn out on the watercolor paper, right? Take your Sharpie and outline everything and fill in these areas with black, like you see here, right? And this is going to take a while, so you're going to want to pause the video when you do that, and then come back to the video to do the painting with me. Okay, so let's say you don't have a Sharpie. That is going to be a little bit of a challenge, but you can get around it. You could paint everything, let it dry, and then go back with a plain ballpoint pen. It's kind of a hassle, but you can do that and then fill in the black. Don't do it before you paint, because if you do that, the regular pen will just bleed out and ruin your project. All right, so let's talk about the painting. All right, so I'm just going to start with this. And I got my water and my brushes and my paint. Okay. So what I did was I did a wet on wet technique, but I only wet the area on the butterfly. All right. Just to keep my paper from getting too watery. All right, so I'm just going to fill the area of the butterfly up with some water and then add some paint. So what I did was I used yellows, yellow, orange, and red, orange, and red. Okay, you can see that here: yellow, yellow, orange, orange, red, orange, and red. If you have a smaller watercolor set, you can just kind of mix your colors, mix your yellow with orange to make yellow orange, or mix your orange and red to make red orange, okay? Or you just do orange, doesn't really matter, whatever makes you happy, okay? So I'm gonna go ahead and loosen up the pigment with some water, and I'm gonna, once again, come over here. I don't want really dark paint. I'm gonna just make sure I have the right intensity of color right here on my tray, and I like that. And then I'm just gonna go in here and kind of drop that drop that paint, kind of splotch it on, dab it. All right, I do want to kind of get different colors because I think that looks really good when you do it, but that's how I'd like to do it. You can go over some of these areas. Okay, so it's kind of like a variegated wash. Okay. All right, so now I'm going to go back and I'm going to do a little bit of yellow here and there. And I love how it bleeds together. And, you know, remember, I would take the yellow and bring it over here. Make sure it's not too intense, not too dark, right? And then just kind of drop it here and there to create that variegated wash, right? Okay, so, and then I'm gonna add a little bit of red, just a bit. The Monarch isn't really red, but when it kind of bleeds in with the other colors, it'll make them a little more intense, which is what I'm going for, creating that more of an intense red. But notice once it bleeds in with the other colors, it makes it look more red-orange, which is really more the color of the Monarch, but they have different colors. Okay, so I'm just gonna fill this whole area wherever there's a little bit of white. I don't really want that. And I like that, it looks good already. And you can leave it like this, okay? And you can always go back once it's dry and do another layer if you want. That's kind of what I did with this one. All right. And then I also kind of did some dripping. So if you want to add the dripping, basically what I did to add the dripping was, and I'm going to show you, and you definitely want newspaper underneath. I kind of don't want to do it on this one, but I'm going to explain to you how I did it. Is basically I used a lot of water and a lot of paint, and I tilted my paper like this, okay? And I just basically dropped the paint down. Okay, if it doesn't drop, you just add a little more water to it, and you can see how it's just going to drop down. See, just keep adding water, and it'll drop down, right? So that's how you do this. Now, make sure you have newspaper or something underneath. I mean, my desk is kind of shot already. It doesn't look that great. But if you want to preserve your desk or your workstation, you probably want to put newspaper down. Okay, so if you want to add that dripping, you can. You know, I did the dripping this way for this direction, and then I tilted it this way for this direction. And you just add a lot of water and a lot of paint. And I let that dry, and then I went back and I did some serious splattering. This time around for this one, I'm just going to do the splattering, okay? So the splattering technique is a little different than what I did or what I've shown you. The splattering technique that I'm going to use for this one is it's more like, I want it to kind of go like across, like you see how it kind of goes across the paper. I'm going to show you how to do that. But here's the deal. You really need to have like a board, like this board I got in the mail. And you need to make a fortress around your project so you don't get the splatter everywhere. So I'm going to show you how I did this. Okay, so I'm just going to put this underneath. Okay, all right, and I'm going to set this up. Set up my board. And I will, once this is dry, I will end up doing another layer because it's a little too pale for me. But I can still show you how to do the splatter. Okay, so usually I've shown you just like, you just tap, 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 right? You load your brush with a lot of paint and a lot of water and you tap. Well, in order to get that look where it's like strewn across the page, You want to take a bigger brush, and you want to load your brush obviously with a lot of paint. And I'm not gonna do this. I mean, you can if you want, but I want it to go across, so I'm gonna flick my brush. And believe me, you want some cardboard to protect the rest of your desk, okay? And I'm gonna flick it across, and it travels more, and that's the look I'm going for right now. This is what I really want. Okay, so load your brush with a lot of paint and a lot of water, and you flick it. I guess you would call it flicking, I don't know. Okay, and see how it kind of goes across, travels. That is the look I'm going for. So I'm doing some red, and then I'm doing some red orange, and I'm gonna move my hands so I can get in there. So you might want to stand when you do this, because then you'll get it to go in the direction you want it to. Okay, I like how it went across like that. That's what I'm going for. I want that more here. So loading my brush again with lots of paint and lots of water, and I'm gonna flick this. Don't be wearing your Gucci when you do this. I'm wearing a t-shirt and some sweatpants I don't really care about. Or if you have a apron, you might want to wear it just to be on the safe side. Okay, and I'm really liking how the splatter is going also on the butterfly. I'm going to do some more red now. And create that splatter. Now I'm going to do some orange. Okay. All right, and then I like how I got the splotches here and there. I'm gonna leave that because I think it's gonna look really good when it dries, and I love how it's kind of bleeding out because of the wet on wet. Okay, so I'm gonna leave this. I think it looks pretty good. And when it's dry, I might add a little more color. I'm gonna see. I'm gonna wait and see. And I will be adding a plant here, but I'm gonna wait till it's dry. Otherwise, I'm gonna smear it and make a mess. Okay, I really suggest you do that as well. All right, so I hope you have fun with this, and I will see you in class.